All right, we're coming off a 19-point victory in the first round of March Madness against 15 seed Jacksonville State. We won 80-61. Both me and Matt are peacocking. He's got his peacock. I'm double peacocked over here. It felt like we got back to peacocking a bit. We're also celebrating, this is how, for any other maybe SEC teams out there that don't understand how you're supposed to take care of a 15 seed, we just let you know. Because some people in our conference that had to play the Peacocks had a little issue of playing their 15 seeds. So, Matt, what'd you think about our first round?
Well, and just so everybody knows, we're recording this on Saturday morning. So we watched Auburn's game yesterday and got into a bunch of things. We both kind of wanted to watch the games and have fun yesterday for the first round. So we have a day to think back. I mean, Auburn, it was great to see them play. I thought they had great game plan on both sides of the ball. They came out very focused, very energetic, playing our style. Jacksonville State hit some really hard shots early in the game, but you kind of felt like eventually that would even out, and it did. It wasn't a perfect game, but I think we got a bunch of things that we needed coming off the last few weeks, starting this postseason with a group of guys who Walker Kessler in his one game at North Carolina last year or two or whatever it was, that's the only experience this roster had in the NCAA tournament. So good to get a win. Like you said, Kentucky goes down to St. Peter's, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. Craziness the first day. It makes you told me, like, I'll be okay with any win. Just let's survive and advance and get to the next round. And we did that.
We, like I said, survive and advance. We thrived and advanced, which was huge in this tournament. If you haven't been watching this tournament, it's been pretty wacky and crazy, especially the first day was. And Alabama also went down to Notre Dame, which was fun to watch.
Yep.
So, LSU lost to Iowa State. I think Tennessee and Arkansas took care of business. We did too. So it's just nice seeing the other guys get knocked off, and just a little less pressure on this team, I'm looking at the stat sheet here. If we want to get into MVP a little, we want to keep this one a little quicker, maybe, since, we'll have another game in a day and we'll be doing that podcast after that too. Hopefully we'll be getting ready for another game after that. But, this stat sheet I was looking at earlier, and I said, this is as close to a perfect stat line from a point distribution as I could hope for. We've seen stuff all over the place. We've seen different players go off. We've had issues with shot volume sometimes from different players. If you look down the stat sheet and Jabari's got 20 with 10 assists, he got double, 20 points, 10 assists. Perfect. Exactly. That is what a dude does. A dude like Jabari just does that every night. And then you have a guy like Walker Kessler, one block away from a triple-double. We were all so much fun in a March Madness game that we can all be sitting there for the last 5 to 10 minutes of the game cheering for a triple-double because the game's out of hand already. Thank God. So please, if you didn't watch the rest of the games, this was huge that we were doing that in our game. And then you look down the rest of the street, you got a three position playing again, hitting 10 points. Huge. Then you have KD, 10 points. Nice. Zep Jasper, 6 points. Wendell Green, 9 points. The volume, Wendell shot 3 of 5, 1 of 2 from 3. KD was the one that had the most volume. He was only 2 of 6 from 3, 3 of 8. That's pretty all right. Flanagan, 3 of 9. It's just nice to see the distribution. And then you got bench points. Jalen Williams had 8 points and hit 2 threes. This is the kind of distribution you wanted. If you have one guy spiking out here or there, it's almost an issue. I loved it. It's perfect.
It felt like a return to the depth, right? All 9 players scored in our rotation. One thing I always look for, kind of nerd analytics, is, can you score more than you took shots, right? 1 point per shot is you should really be above that in terms of being an efficient scorer. Every player on Auburn's team did that except for Devin Cambridge. But even he had 5 rebounds. He had a tremendous alley-oop towards the end, played great defense. You felt like you got what you wanted from everybody. You talked about the point distribution. How about the shot distribution? Wendell Green taking only 5 shots and being completely comfortable playing 24 minutes. I thought it was good to see him kind of quiet in a way.
6 assists, though, which you could feel. You saw him make some nice passes.
6 assists. 1 turnover for Wendell, 7 assists, 1 turnover for KD Johnson coming off.
I did not realize.
So, and honestly, if we're talking about MVP, I mean, KD has to at least be in the conversation. I thought he did just about everything. He turned it over once driving in the lane and traveled early in the game, but he was terrific defensively. He had his moments of aggression in the open court. He was talking crap to everybody in the building when he would hit a shot. His confidence, he said, "I'm back,"
He did one of those jumping up in the air and like seizing up, like going Super Saiyan. It was just nice to see him getting back to that after a bad game before.
But look, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. And you never felt like he was too loud. I mean, he took 8 shots, which I think is in line. And Kessler and Jabari are the only 2 that took double-digit shots. I think that's a great sign. Flanagan's was still not pretty, but again, getting him in double figures, getting him to the line, getting him out in transition to score a couple. It just felt like Auburn played like themselves, as you would expect against a team like Jacksonville State.
Yeah, I was about to say that this is the reward we get for how well we played during the season. Yep. We got to play 15 seed Jacksonville State, who didn't even win their conference. The whole crazy scenario where Bellarmine actually won the conference, but they didn't get allowed. So
they did win their conference in the regular season.
Oh yeah. Well, they didn't win their tournament at least, and it's smaller athletes on the team, less depth on that team, and this is what you're supposed to do as a 2 and 15 seed. And I think some of these players, I'm hoping this continues the trends and like the comfortability we saw out there. Everybody just looked so comfortable, and the passes were like gotten too easily. Just never felt like we got too frantic. Even when they tried to double somebody, we just easily got out of it. I wonder if part of that's probably just being better athletes than this team. While down the stretch when we were playing Tennessee and Arkansas and even Texas A&M and all these, but they had the athletes just as good as us or not better, and especially in the guard positions, and it would speed us up more than we wanted to. Luckily, if you look at our like seeding, we've talked about in the last episode how good our bracket thing is. We don't really face another team that I feel like's got those kind of athletes that we're afraid of until you might say Miami's got those athletes. I don't know, but like I watched the Wisconsin Colgate game. I was not super impressed by Wisconsin's people. Like, so it's just a good draw. Like Miami's not an elite team. They might have some really good athletic guards or something, but they're not an elite team. So it's nice. And that's what we get for having such a good seed. I mean,
we'll talk about Miami more towards the end when we look ahead, but I agree. I think we've gotten as good of an opportunity as you could ask for. It almost got better if Colgate could have beaten Wisconsin. Iowa State took out LSU, and I don't care what people say about LSU. You just don't enjoy playing LSU. They have a bunch of dudes who are going to play in the NBA. And even though they're a mess and Will Wade's gone, I still didn't really want to run into them in the Sweet 16. So a lot of things are going our way. But obviously we have to be able to capitalize on this. Talk to me about Jabari. Jabari's first NCAA tournament game. 20 points, 14 rebounds, the dunk of the tournament so far. Just what were your experiences watching him?
I just got done watching his highlights on the March Madness app because he's ridiculous, man. He's turned it up. Like when you dreamed up Jabari in the lab or like in your, like, what could Jabari be? He's doing it. He's like peaked at the exact right time. We talked about these little different things he could work on driving or doing whatever. He's just so smooth and confident right now. And he's talking smack out there, and his 3-point we haven't had a guy, I guess Bryce was like this. And it's just so when he's open at the 3-point line, you're just like, you're already celebrating before the ball even goes down. It's so amazing to watch. And Jacksonville State left him open way too often. Like we've seen a couple teams stick to Jabari like glue, and he's had to get these like foul calls or like just make shots over people. He got a couple decent looks tonight, and he drained all of them, and it was really fun to watch. And then the cherry on top, the dunk. If you haven't gone back and watched the highlight of the dunk, if you like somehow missed that during the game, it was late in the game or something, it's what we've been asking for him. And he's been it's just so cool to see him actually like making the progress, because we saw it in the last couple of games before this. He attempted one where he was gonna try to take a man's life and dunk on him. It didn't quite work out like 2 or 3 games ago. And then I think he had one of those big dunks against Mississippi State at the end of the game. And then he was starting to go for it in this game, man. He shot a 3 and missed a guy's own rebound in just like 2 strides. Arm is stretched out like freaking Michael Jordan and Space Jam, just slammed it on the dude and got the foul call. Wendell is like shocked with the Cobra. They keep going back to Dylan Cardwell. He's shocked. His mouth open. The sports writers are shocked. Like, oh man, people talk about that's gonna be the dunk of the tournament. I'm afraid like in the first round it'll get forgotten later on or something. But man, this dude, what an athlete! Like,
well, and And I'm not sure, you get these national announcers, and I thought it was awesome to have Jim Nantz and that A crew from CBS do this game. But, they're like, oh, these guys are acting shocked. I bet they see this all the time. And KD said after the game in his press conference, he's like, no, we've never seen him do that, like body somebody like that. And you and I have watched all these games, like a lot of our listeners have. He hasn't been doing that. Like, that's the next last step of his progression. And it's going to really serve him well in the NBA as he continues to grow. You feel great about him getting that first tournament game out of the way. He's been playing great now for a month, like kind of at that next level. So you feel really good about that. It was great to see him in the only thing. I mean, 14 rebounds from him. He out-rebounded Kessler. Part of that was because Kessler was out. We'll talk about him a little bit. But the only thing is he had 4 of our 11 turnovers. He still makes some just incredibly 18-year-old passes, I guess you could say. But what he does for this team, I think he is clearly the alpha, and getting that dunk. Usually I would say, well, it's garbage time. Why are we even risking injury? They were coming out right after that anyway. That was going to be his last three-pointer. He missed it. But for him to get the rebound, go and dunk on somebody. We talked about needing to return to the swagger, the energy, the peacock. Like, we need to get back to that. I couldn't have drawn up that. And it was right after a big Cambridge alley-oop too in transition.
Yeah.
So like getting the, and people forget, like with the tournament, you're going to play in that same building 2 days later. So just getting that energy, I just feel like it was almost exactly what we would have wanted from this game, minus some injury concerns that we'll talk about.
I guess we got our peacock back. It was
And
nice.
Jabari's got to be the MVP, right?
We'll have to talk about Walker, but you're probably right. But it's just this is exactly what the doctor ordered for this team. And you could say it's Jacksonville State. Oh, of course you blew that team out. We blew them out like when other teams didn't blow their guys out. And then we did it in a way that like seems buildable, like this kind of stuff, like the confidence we brought, the kind of passes we made, the shots we made. It all seems like things that can, it wasn't just like one guy going off or Jacksonville State like screwing up or something. It feels like exactly what we needed. The kind of
two things. You're absolutely right. It was playing the right way. And the two big things. It was great to see us have one of those avalanche 18-0 runs from the end of the first half to the beginning of the second half. That's what stretched it out. And imagine, if Jacksonville State hadn't hit 5 of their first 7 threes, I think 4 of them were super tough contested
in your
threes.
face stuff. They just kept hitting it. We were playing great defense. They just kept hitting shots in our face. Everybody in the bar, it's tough when they're beating you, but I kept looking around the bar and everybody was at the St. Pat's in New York City, like being like, listen, they're not going to keep hitting this. And if they do, then we were screwed all along,
Well, how about this stat of the game for me? And it speaks to how much better and how much of a great plan we had for this game. 23 assists on our 28 made baskets. For this, a Bruce Pearl team's not always great at that, but when this team shares the ball and is running an offense and looking for guys in different spots and being unselfish, like that's what we need to see. I can't remember the last game we've done one of these where we had that high
chemistry. It's the chemistry, right? It feels like chemistry's back. Like that's kind of stuff I'm talking about, where they're building, they can build on this game. It's like any kind of tension we talked about, like what the worst case scenarios could be for this team and stuff. And the biggest thing was just the tension and the stress and the buildup from like having this like slump or whatever. And you come into the game like this, even if you win it in like a not fun way. And like somebody like Jabari had to go off for 30 and everybody else sucked. And we turned the ball over 20 times and we barely won. That same pressure, we go to the next game. It feels like there's like a little bit off the chest, And it helps that Alabama and Kentucky went down too. So it's a little bit like, okay, we doing it,
And Bruce said he told them before they got there, hey, y'all are the SEC champions. Just go play. Like y'all have already won. Y'all have won a title. You earned it over 18 games of a difficult schedule. Go play ball. And it was just really good to see them have fun. They trusted each other. And I just thought Bruce called a terrific game offensively and defensively. We were incredibly locked in. And not only did we have a great plan, but we adjusted even above and beyond the plan as we saw what they were doing. It just felt like we had a very competent approach on both ends, which I don't think we could have said all the time. Talk about Walker and KD, because I think both of them played really big roles in this game.
I don't know if you've got a better eye for some of this like quieter like assists and like locked in defense stuff for the MVP stuff. I'm a little more locked in with Walker Kessler getting that triple double or getting one block away from the triple double. If he had gotten that triple double, I think he would have been Jabari. But it's weird to say, oh, one block difference, all of a sudden's a thing just because he didn't get that stat that we made up as 10 instead. Not, but he was amazing. Walker Kessler was amazing out there. We knew he thrives against these kind of teams, these like smaller teams where he can just a freaking wall. There was a point guard that went by at one point. I just absolutely love it. I think some of the teams said they love it when a point guard comes in the lane and just looks up and is like, nah, and gets out of there. And there was one where a point guard kind of went into the basket, kind of did a turnaround, and Walker jumped up in the air with his arms all out. I was like, man, I was imagining what the point guard saw in his eyes. All he probably saw was a wall of white jersey and arms, and it was just what is you wouldn't even realize I was a human. You would just know there's something in your way up there, and he just got out. And that's how he affects shots,
And to me, it was great to see Walker play well. We got him a couple touches inside. He got a couple putbacks. He was excited. Great to see him without the brace. But then, to me, the most impressive thing about his game is, he goes down and he reaches for. I'm still confused. For some reason, I thought the first injury was on his other shoulder.
I'm pretty sure it was on his left shoulder because people were talking about how his left arm is the arm that he does a lot of his stuff with. And then if I look at the goal on the replay, I'm pretty sure you're right. It was pulled. His right arm got pulled back at a weird angle.
Yes. And so that was weird. And you're like, oh no. But then he came back in and then he get, the weird play where he's going for a block, he gets pushed back into Jalen Williams and Jalen takes the brunt of that, but Walker's elbow's gashed open and they have to take him back. But then for him to come back after both of those, looked fine, looked good, got more blocks, got more points, got more rebounds. So that was but you had Cardwell go down, you had Kessler go down, you had Jalen Williams go out, and you're like, whoa, this is exactly what we don't need to happen. But the fact that Cardwell and mainly Kessler played so well after that, and he was out for a few minutes, he would have had that triple double probably without some of those injuries.
Let me walk you through that little scenario real quick. I think it's a good time to talk about before we name our MVP or whatever. But Walker, we just had a moment where Cardwell kind of had a weird landing and he's holding his hip, and you're like, oh, we hope it's just one of those stingers or whatever. Anything can turn into anything, And he's limping off and oh no. So they put Kessler and Jalen out there at the same time. And there's a weird moment where he goes up for rebound or something, and Jalen and Walker, it didn't really look that violent or anything. Really, you just saw all of a sudden you saw our players Kessler holding his arm and Jalen Jalen on the ground, and it ends up brutal. Walker cut his elbow all open. He was bleeding. So it's okay, well, we've both seen that before. You can stitch those up really quickly or put super glue. But Jalen, on the other hand, and then you have no big men. Cardwell just went out seconds ago. Yep. Kessler's got a bloody arm where you have to legally or whatever take him to the locker room and clean that up because you can't play with blood on you. And then Jalen's holding his face. You have no idea what's going on. And then you start hearing these little rumors. It's his teeth got knocked out. He's missing his front teeth. Somebody told me there was a piece of the tooth in Walker's arm. I don't know if I believe that or not.
True. It was on the floor though.
I heard there was a tooth on the floor, and they were someone's got to come get this tooth. And so then they're taking Kessler and Jalen back to the locker room, and then you're like, is Cardwell actually able to come back in? I don't even know. And then you're like, Stretch is the next guy. Well, that's the issue. Is if Cardwell and Kessler's out, we just we'll play small ball with Jalen in there, but Jalen's going out. So then you're we literally don't have another guy tall enough to do this. And then I guess you play Cambridge in there. So I'm okay, maybe this is the moment, because we thought maybe Stretch is trying to get a red shirt or something maybe, and you'd hate to burn his red shirt just for a couple minutes of play in March Madness. It'd be really hard to ask him that. Luckily, Cardwell came back in and seemed to play well. But then Stretch came in garbage time, and you were is he getting what is going on with Stretch?
It was all very weird. I don't know if there's a rule where somehow if you make it through the regular season and don't play, you're eligible for it. That doesn't seem to make sense. He should have came in
for that little spell when we needed a 1 or 2 minute thing to make sure Cardwell was good. Luckily they gave him a good amount of time to let's clean this up, let's walk this. Even as they were walking the locker room, there still seemed to be an extra 2 or 3 minutes where they were huddled up and trying to figure things out, which was good for us. But it was weird. We went a little lull there at a time too, when the energy just got really low. I think maybe the teammates were man, it's messed up seeing your teammates get their teeth knocked out, and then we're missing our best center. Cardwell's a little limpy or whatever, and then he loses a shoe. So he loses his shoe out there, and he's like trying to put it back on, and they pass the ball up to Cambridge, and instead of Cambridge holding the ball while Cardwell puts his shoe back on, we get an offense set together with like 20 seconds left on the shot clock. Cambridge shoots a bad contested three, and you're like, what the? And then Cardwell has to go back down with no shoe on, slipping around trying to play defense on one shoe or whatever. And of course they score on us. And I'm just like, Cambridge, how do you shoot a contested three of all time? One, you should never be shooting three again. He's shooting like 15% from three right now or something like that. Definitely don't shoot a contested early shot clock three when your dude's trying to put the shoe on.
It was all a mess. And like people who don't pay attention to Auburn all the time, I always feel like that's one of those things, like that would only happen to us. Like that sequence of events, maybe it would happen to somebody else. It just feels very random. But again, like I was really kind of angry and just like, no, like we're actually playing well. You can't, the basketball gods can't be doing all this to us. And we'll still see about Jalen and his availability. We'll talk about him when we talk about players, but he played terrific.
I heard he should be good to go. They like immediately took him to a dentist, like you would assume they would. Hopefully he doesn't need like emergency surgery right now or whatever. Maybe they can like stitch it up and like get it done after the season or something. I was joking with my friends at the bar. I got to watch the game with former guest host Ben Young, which was fun to kind of like banter back and forth in real life. We don't always get to do that. And we were joking if he should just leave them empty. And if we win the whole thing, instead of getting a championship ring, he gets some diamond teeth that say Final Four on it or whatever. The school's probably playing for the dental anyways. You just get the 2 front gold diamond teeth these times.
I hated it because he didn't miss a shot. He hit 2 threes. He was playing unbelievably. His first half rotations were as good as he's been. And then in the second half, he had just come on the floor when he got popped like that. And just unfortunate, not anybody's fault. It's honestly surprising stuff like that doesn't happen more often in basketball, the way people are flying around.
No one wears mouth guards anymore too, which I saw another game where they were talking about. I think part of it too with March Madness, people are so aggressive in March, like you can really notice that no one's wearing them anymore. And Ben, also, we were sitting there, we talked about you too, because Jalen was playing so well. I was like, Matt's probably penciling in MVP, Jalen Williams, his boy, and then this happens. He could have been him.
The thing is, we talked about how we just need a couple guys to hit some shots, some of those veterans just to like give us a little bit. Like if Cambridge gave us a 3 or 2 a game, it just won. That would be this massive thing for us. And Jalen hitting a couple's big, KD hitting his is big. Like, so we saw the value of that. I just want to talk about KD briefly. He really brought the energy. He played under control defensively. For him, we talked about how he was making this shift to assists and sharing the ball. He had some great passes. And for him to only turn it over once, have 7 assists to made baskets to other players, and get in double figures himself on only 8 shots, like that is exactly the KD story arc we want to see. And I just think he deserves a lot of credit for dealing with the last week. That was brutal. Like that was a historically bad performance, and a lot of them were at the rim. They weren't all terrible shot selection. Some of them were towards the end, but I wasn't worried about his confidence. But how about Bruce, right? Comes out first play of the game, flex action. KD is the number 1 option. We're going to get him towards the basket. He's going to make a layup, and he's going to go crazy. And it was the perfect way to start. He did that both halves, actually, and it worked really well. So credit to KD.
I said the stat line was all perfect on here. The more underlined too with KD too. But like, this is perfect stat lines for each one of their roles.
Yes.
This is what we like. If we're picking roles for these guys and say, you just do this every night, we're going to win every single game. You have Jabari go on his dude mode. You have Walker Kessler get close to a triple double. You got Flanagan giving us a couple extra points and playing some defense, maybe going and getting tough 2 or 2, which is for him, it's anything from him right now is huge. KD went and got his with the assist, with everything. Zepp even hit a couple shots. Like, it's just nice. Every single dude seemed to hit his mark tonight, including the bench players getting a couple extra points. So like, just so much fun. We need to.
Everybody seemed like a threat. Everybody seemed like a threat. We played that A&M game, and it felt like no one was a threat on our team to score. And it's Jacksonville State, but this team has always been at its best when everybody's contributing, the depth and the athleticism. And I really think you started to see that. And the value here is we are deeper than Jacksonville State. We're deeper than Miami. And in these weekend settings, now you're going to play Miami, who played a really tough game against USC. Less than 48 hours later, they're going to play this Auburn team. We're just deeper. We play more guys, and we keep our guys at less minutes. And Bruce always says you hope that pays dividends late in seasons and late in tournaments.
So I think we can name them. I just want to underline again, they all hit their roles, but you almost want to give them an MVP for hitting their roles. And Jabari's role is to be the dude that goes off for 20 and has 14 rebounds and has the big dunk. So he gets the MVP. But honestly, that's what we want to name every time. We want to name Jabari the MVP because if he's doing what he's supposed to do, he's better than anybody else on the floor. And he's like a number one draft pick kind of guy and an alpha dude and the kind of guy they're going to highlight on March Madness. It's just so nice to have. Well, it's going to be a long time before we have again, so just enjoy the mess out of it. The ESPN and March Madness and the CBS are like, everyone stop and watch Jabari Smith, watch an Auburn player. It just doesn't happen, right?
We've never had that guy. I mean, Charles would be the one, but even those Charles teams weren't great in the regular season. They weren't nationally relevant necessarily. By the way, I love the stat I sent you right before we came on. There's only 2 guys in Auburn history to have 20 and 10 in their first NCAA tournament game. It's Charles Barkley and Jabari Smith. So kind of cool company and a cool thing for Jabari. You just hope, like you said, at this point, it's crazy when you have a good team. This is probably the best team, since I was 10, the 99 team, which I wasn't quite as locked in on. This is the best team in the last 20 years of we have actual expectations and hopes to do something. And it does hit different in March when you feel the anxiety of like, this could be the last time we see these guys play. This could be the last. And I don't know, you multiply that by putting yourself in the player's shoes. It's just crazy. And you watch all these games and the upsets and one shot at the buzzer and one team wins, I feel like I'm getting a full experience this year with how good our team is and how good we know they can be, like trying to live up to those expectations. There's a lot of pressure, but the kids handled it really well yesterday.
I saw an interesting stat today. It's just cool that they're posting stats about Auburn, posting stats about Jabari. You turn on the March Madness app this morning, and the first thing I saw was watch Jabari Smith highlights. That's for everyone in the world. Yeah, it's not like they knew I was wanting to watch Auburn stuff, which is just huge. And what interesting stat. I just saw them random at TV and at 11 o'clock at night, they were posting like cool stats. And one of the stats was Auburn 10-0 in round of 64 games since 1985. Best record all time with minimum 10 games. We hold a record in NCAA tournament games for like nationally. What?
We've never lost in the first round, I believe. They changed the tournament structure at some point in the 80s. And I think either since 85 or I think that's when it changed, something like that. I don't think
1985. So yeah,
I don't think we've ever lost a round of 64 game, which is pretty wild. We've only been in it 10 times.
That they're throwing out stats like all time. Like we know that we're amazing right now. The Bruce has like built this thing and everybody should respect us, but like we'll openly admit it's fans and anybody that I talk to in the basketball sphere, I'll be like, we have been absolutely bad historically. We're one of the worst, and that's what makes Bruce Pearl and all this so amazing is that we are just like been so bad other than just like little stretches here and there. So the fact that we own a record of any kind in national basketball is just very interesting to me.
One thing just personally, and then we'll get into the specifics, but I live in Tennessee, as you know. Tennessee fans, obviously their team is great. They are playing as good as anybody. I've had people texting me saying, kind of like throwing shade at us because we just haven't been playing as well. And I just told somebody, I was like, look, man, like, yeah, Tennessee's playing better than us in the last few weeks. I think they're really good. I think they have a chance to go to the Final Four. What you don't understand is I'm 32. This is the 6th tournament my team has ever made, like in my life. So like, you can't take this away. Like, I'm just going to enjoy every game. I'm going to have so much fun with this team. And it was a great start to like living into that. And you just hope it goes as long as possible.
Those early ones, I was pretty young. I wasn't doing a podcast,
Right.
But maybe I'll get you to look at some of these stats real quick, rebounds, assists, steals, percentages, point out anything you find interesting, and then we'll get into pregame notes.
Yeah, we've talked about all year, right? Depth, we've touched on that already. Rebounds, 150-32, as you would hope against a smaller team. Great to see us attack the glass with ferocity. We won both offensive and defensive rebounding clearly. Turnovers, we lost. I thought Jacksonville State did they only had 8 turnovers. Like, that's a great job against how good our defense was. We only had 11 though, which is a good number for us. I think anything under 12 is good. So we took care of the ball well too. The biggest thing was just shooting. They started out hot. We ended up out shooting them from 3 and from the field significantly. And then I think bench points, you talked about 21-7. That's an Auburn bench point stat line all day. points in the paint, getting inside 32-18, fast break 25-6. It just felt like Auburn 10-1 blocks. I mean, just a lot of 23-9 assists. We won this game very decisively, but you got to credit Jacksonville State. They, for 15 of the 40 minutes till the last 5 of the first half, they just hit tough shots and they were winning. I mean, they were up for almost that whole stretch there. We went out 5-0.
And they had some bad luck that we were hitting on all cylinders, like they kind of did what you want to do as 15 seed and just hit those tough shots, just stay in the game. Maybe the pressure gets to the higher seed and they start turning the ball over, or they start missing some shots. Or we just there was never a moment. We didn't really give them a shot on this game, Another interesting thing, I think we need to keep the ball like moving quickly, and it feels like the team kind of understands that, and it wasn't always that fact. And if we get like a long rebound or even like just toss the ball in as quickly as possible and just get it speed up, because like the game felt like we ran a decent amount, like not like big monsters level necessarily, but it felt like we kept things moving quickly. So the fact that they only turned the ball over 8 times and it still felt like we kept the game at a certain pace is big. And I wish we would do that more often. Like, even if you don't get the turnover, like it seems like a lot of times we try to cause the turnovers and things so we can get on our pace of the game.
Right.
But like sometimes you can manufacture that a little bit. You can like push the pace a bit instead of like holding back, and you kind of manufactures like, it's not quite the same, but it gets things going a little bit. And that might in turn get some turnovers later kind of stuff. So it's just good to see Wendell and the different guards push the ball up the court like immediately.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jacksonville State was doing a great job of controlling that pace. That was the only thing that concerned me. It wasn't the tough shots. They were taking 30 seconds off the shot clock and they were hitting a tough shot at the end. And that shortens the game. It's hard to play when you're the better team. That's like the perfect formula of how you lose. But it really felt like we did cause a couple of those turnovers. We got out and ran on some misses, and we just kind of avalanched. We just avalanched them a little bit with our pace. And I think other than Miami, everybody else that we'll run into for the near future doesn't like that. I was hoping Wisconsin would lose, but honestly, I like our matchup with our style of play against Wisconsin. We might lose, but I like our matchup there. So yeah, you're right. It was good to see us kind of and do that effectively and not out of control. It never felt like we were out of control the whole game, really.
Who is the other side that Wisconsin has to play now? Iowa State?
Iowa State.
They might lose to Iowa State. I don't know. I was not very impressed with Wisconsin. I was at the Colgate bar, and Colgate like had them on the ropes until the last couple minutes. And shout out to the Colgate fans. The 2 times I've been to Colgate bars, which I'm sure Auburn fans are like, what? They have Colgate bars? Like, what is going on? Yeah, apparently they do. And they're really rowdy and a really good time. I've done it like the last 2 March Madnesses. They had lots of fans. We'll get into one last thing about the stats, and then we'll get into pre-games. The offensive rebounds, shout out to Dylan Cardwell. Yep. He had like 3 or 4 of them, I think. So It was impressive, and he kept like getting us extra moments, like 3. So he kept getting us extra moments. They really were big to go get.
Yep.
We'll do pre-games notes real quick. I'll do mine first. Can the guards hit some threes early and get the confidence back? I don't know if they necessarily hit them early or not, but they definitely got the confidence back and they hit some threes. Wendell hit a good 3. He went 1 of 2. He didn't shoot too many of them, which was nice. KD hit a couple early. He shot himself a little bit out of a good game there. He's still doing that weird, like the open threes aren't good enough for him. So he dribbles into like maybe around the same 3 shot. It's weird, but it was good. He hit 1 really confident one, the kind I don't really like very much, where he just kind of gets up there and shoots it in the guy's face. But hey, if it's going in, we've had a long enough season now to just be like, screw it. He needs to hit some of those,
Well, but you just, like you said, the big thing is getting the confidence, right? So Wendell only takes 2, which is a borderline miracle, hits 1 of them. So he makes a 3. KD hits 2 threes. Jalen hits 2 threes. Zep had a long 2 that was
it was a toe on the line. It should have been a 3.
Jabari hit 4 threes. So, you feel really good about that whole direction. Cambridge is the one guy and Flanagan, but we kind of know what we are at this point. For me, I have low expectations. If Auburn can shoot 30% from 3, we don't have to be 40. I think we have so many strengths in other areas. We just can't be horrific like we can be at times. So being 38% from 3 is great for us. I think that was a good key, that we got some of those guards going a little bit.
Not to harp on freaking Cambridge, but he's shooting overall in the whole year. He's shooting 22% from three, and it's worse than that from conference. And before, like a lot of that's from earlier in the season when he was shooting a little bit better. Like they're daring him to shoot these. He shot 3 times. They're daring you to shoot those threes, and we get it. It's supposed to be a kick out to an open guy, and like don't like if it's wide open. I still don't want you to shoot it, honestly, unless it's like getting late in the shot clock. And this is how bad it's gotten. But then also he shot that contested 3, and I was like, oh my God, like just go get rebounds and play defense. He had a great block. I give him that. But the threes are just.
He had a great block. He had great rebounds. But I'm just telling you, buckle up. He's going to take a couple every game because he's going to be open, and Bruce wants everybody to take the open shot.
Maybe he'll just.
You can argue with Bruce about that and heat check timeouts at a later date. We'll have a debate. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Next is, can we speed the game up and turn this game into a track meet to wear them down? We didn't really turn them over a lot, so that it wasn't like getting on. But like we just got done talking about that point. I think we tried to push the pace some, and I love that we try to manufacture that recently, because even if and manufacture that too doesn't mean taking a shot early necessarily. It just means getting into your offense quicker. It means getting the team kind of in that like second or two of transition where the other team is like finding their guy, and we get a pass in there that maybe could work out. And even if that pass doesn't work out because the guy gets on him, maybe the next guy is still transitioning and that guy gets like it just gets everything rotating. We saw how our half court offense is not our specialty. We don't have like some great drawn up plays necessarily. Like it's just nice.
But didn't you feel like though yesterday that we had a really good variety of it? We had our flex action. We got inside. Mm-hmm. We had Jabari in the post. We had Walker in the post. We had our screen and roll. Felt like we had some dribble drive stuff. Like it did feel like we're never going to have the biggest offensive arsenal. If you watch like Purdue and other teams, they've got like 12 set plays with 14 counters off of them. And it's just different. That's not how we're going to play. I did feel like within our system, though, we did a good job of mixing it up and getting different guys involved and getting them good looks. And that's really all you can ask for, I think.
Would this be a good time to talk about Bruce hinted at having drawn up a new play or two?
Yeah.
And Ben was bringing that up too at the bar. And Ben's thought that might be the new play was early in the game, there was like a pick and roll type situation, and Kessler ended up kind of like fading out to the left, and they doubled, I believe, Wendell or somebody, and they threw it over to Kessler, and he did like a 2-step dunk. And we were like, is that the play? Did that the play? I don't know if you have a thought on like if you saw a play you felt like it was the new play.
No, I didn't. I'd have to go back and look. Sometimes a lot of teams are running what they call ghost screens. So there's so much pick and roll basketball, right, that you almost lull teams to sleep by like, all right, Kessler's going to come set a screen, and they play their defense. Well, if you call a ghost screen and you basically bail right as the contact's about to happen and you just release, that looked like what that was to me. I'd have to go back and watch. But I was kind of watching too. And who knows, maybe Bruce was, the stat was what the other coach in Division II was like 13-3 against Bruce or something like that, or something weird. So they go back a long ways. Maybe he was just giving his old rival, some stuff to think about in pregame or something.
Yeah, I'm glad we got that ball over to Kessler. I need to go back and watch that replay and see how exactly that play developed, because we just had issues getting that ball out. Me and Matt were talking about the night before. It was so frustrating to watch some of these college teams get down to the last 20 seconds of the game and have a shot be like tied up. All you need to do is get a shot. And there's this whole pick and roll action like we do with Wendell and Kessler. And every single time the second guy pushes up and they do kind of a double onto the point guard, it completely ruins the whole entire play. And then it's like no one seems to have a counter. It's really bad for our guys because they're so small. They can't get the ball over. And so it's just like, expect it now. I don't know, draw something up, expect that the guy that was on Kessler is going to push up a little bit.
And get ready, because Miami jumped the mess out of USC's ball screens up high. So, and I mean, they really extended out. And we were doing the same, by the way, to how did we adjust to Jacksonville State at the 3-point line? We really hedged out hard on those guards to try to take away the 3-point line. So we better have some answers for that tomorrow.
Yeah. My last one is Walker. Is Walker back to good health and able to dominate a lower level team? And we've talked about a lot of this stuff, so I'm glad, we kind of went deep into the game. I'd say yes. I mean, sure, he got cut up. He wasn't wearing his brace. He had a funny tan line where the brace was that I thought was funny, like a farmer's tan situation going on. Just glad he's not wearing the brace. Hopefully he's not wearing the brace next game. He looked really good, dominated a lower level team. Exactly what I expected.
Well, it was great to see him post game with Bruce, arms around each other. It was Bruce's birthday, and he looked fine. I mean, we'll see tomorrow if there's any ill effects. It was really disturbing to see him go down twice in like 2 minutes. But yeah, he looked good. He looked good. He looks like he's continuing to get more and more comfortable. 9 blocks. It felt like his block game had really gone away. It hadn't gone away. It just wasn't as dominant the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a smaller team, but I thought he played really well.
Yours is Walker Kessler is our only player who has played in the big dance. How do the tournament rookies perform under pressure?
Yeah, I thought they played great. And especially the fact that they didn't panic when things weren't going well. For a really long stretch of that first half, they were executing the game plan and they didn't give up on it. They didn't freak out. They didn't start questioning each other. We talked a little bit about some of the chemistry stuff that looked a little iffy last week. Thought they adjusted really well.
Next one is Jacksonville stays among the nation's best 3-point shooting teams. Can we hold them under 33?
I'll take credit for that. They were at 32. They shot 39 for the year as a team. Jabari's 43 and he's an elite shooter. They shot 39% as a team this year. They started hot. You were really nervous that are they just going to hit these all game? But eventually we got that number down. And look, if you had told me before the game Auburn was going to outshoot them from 3, both in makes and percentage, it's game over. And we were able to do that.
Your last one is, I'll be tracking the cumulative shooting numbers of Zep, KD, and Wendell. Not the usual question format.
It's not a question,
notes, but
But like we talked about, right? I mean, all 3 of those guys scored more than the shots they took. They were efficient. They made good percentages. I thought they made good decisions. I thought they shared the ball well. I thought they encouraged each other and looked like a cohesive unit. That's the formula, right? When everybody watches Auburn, they worry that the guards don't realize they have the number 1 or 2 lottery picks on the floor. And it didn't feel like a game where the guards had forgotten that yesterday.
We look at the stats real quick. We want to make a shorter show, so we'll try to do it quickly. We talked about Kessler. We talked about Jabari. Flanagan quickly. He had 10 points, 2 turnovers, 1 assist, 5 rebounds. It was good to see him get a couple points. It was good to see him not do an air ball or take a charge. I think a decent amount of this is going to come down to the fact that it was Jacksonville State, and I honestly still don't want him. He still didn't look super great, like finishing the ball or like having good touch on the ball. Like that's one of the things I like about Flanagan, or at least it did coming into the season. He's got good touch on the ball, even though he's got to go through contact. And it doesn't look like he's got it quite as much. I just need him to not be attacking. Honestly, I'm sorry. Like it takes away these possessions and he misses a lot and he picks up a lot of charges. So he turns the ball over a bunch, still had 2 turnovers. And then like one of the 2 free throws he had was like in transition. And he just like bowled over some people. And I was like talking to the guys at the bar again. I was like, clearly Jacksonville State just did not do their film watch good enough, because every other team in the SEC knows to just set your feet right there and Flanagan will just run right through you. And so like, maybe that's a good thing. We don't have the people with the same film, or these Jackson State guys are just not fast enough to get in front of Flanagan. But, I'm glad he had a little moment. I hope he's not going to keep, he shot 9 times. That's too much for.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why he shot 9. I don't know if you caught this. Bruce was like, the only clear agenda Bruce had in this game was to win and get Flanagan and force Flanagan to take shots and get him in position to make shots. They ran flex action in the second half. First play, they did it for KD in the first half. They did it for Flanagan in the second. He got a layup. They ran that little play where they get him in the paint for a lefty curl short shot. They were yelling at him all second half. Go downhill, get fouled, get to the free throw line, build your confidence. We want you to be appropriately aggressive. And I think the encouraging thing, he shot as many free throws as Jabari. So, and I don't think that was because Allen was being out of his role. I think that's because the coaching staff legitimately thinks and wants him to be a threat. They feel like that might be one of the keys to open this up. I'm guessing, but if you watch the body language of the coaches and how they were talking to him and what they ran for him, this was the opportunity against a team that was weaker and smaller to try to get him going a little bit, and maybe a 10-point game and hitting 4 of 6 from the line and hitting a couple shots. Maybe that he's playing great defense. Maybe that unlocks just a little bit. We just need a couple guys to hit a few shots. Maybe that'll help Flanagan get there.
Yeah, I wasn't watching that side. That's a good point. They were encouraging that. I've given up on the 2 guys on the 3 and just want them to like stop taking ball. I mean, he shot 9 times. That's more than KD. That's more than Zep. That's more than Wendell. And so like, it's just too much. And some of that was in transition, but I don't know if that was what they're pushing, and if that's what they see this team every single day in practice. They if they feel like they need that, like for Flanagan to happen, for this team to go as far as they want them to go, I guess you have to keep pushing. I think that experiment's over and you'll take what you can from like giving those shots to somebody else. But I get how big of a weakness it is that the three position is just such a dud and that teams are leaving the three open and doubling down low and different things like that. So I get why they would want to do it. I just don't have any belief that it's going to work.
Well,
so I hope so, man. If Flanagan can even be this good the rest of the way, it spells like amazing things for us. So
it didn't happen in the first half when it was close. It happened in the second half when we were up by 15 and 10-20. And I think that could be the only time this tournament you get that luxury to kind of work on something specific. And but it seemed fairly clear to me that was one of their game plans coming out of the halftime, was to get Flanagan involved, get him a little more confidence. And because you never know, you just never know who's going to be on the line down one with 5 seconds left. You never know who's going to, in a scramble situation, get the ball and have to hit an open shot. So
we talked about this team needs to make some adjustments, and it was frustrating at times. This team has had big games we've lost or almost lost, and we didn't seem to learn anything from them. I'm afraid that like this game, there was not, maybe that adjustment was trying to get Flanagan a little more shots or whatever. We didn't see Chris Moore. We didn't see that like 3-man, 3-position rotation. We didn't see the plays with Wendell, Zepp, and KD in there. We didn't really see anything that we didn't see before in this game, which this game you could blow out playing the way we've been playing or whatever. I am afraid that maybe like, I don't know, we kind of wanted that adjustment. I was a little concerned. I thought for sure we'd see a little more Chris Moore this game, like some sort of something. And so I don't want to just like revert back to like, we're back to Monstars from early in the season.
Revert back to the team that won 19 in a row. You wouldn't want to do that.
It hadn't worked out against better teams. That's what we want to do. We don't want to just beat Jacksonville State. We want to go all the way, You've
got the wrong coach then, because
maybe I just don't want to get to the Kansas game and we like, if we make it that far, which amazing if we make it that far anyways, but like, and then we have the same problems we've had every time we played a good team. And
but you're assuming you're assuming there's some adjustment with our 10th guy that's gonna help us beat Kansas. Yeah. I just don't think that's a fair.
We just know what our weakness is at this point, and
so does everybody else. And that's the beauty of the sport, that Bruce is just always going to be a guy. I agree with you. I do think we had a very intentional distribution of shots with calling the offense, which I was encouraged by. But Bruce is always going to be the guy that wants his 9 or 10 guys to be like, he's going to invest in that and what they've built all year, because he really thinks the depth pays off the further you go in the season, and the consistency so like, I would have been shocked if there was some weird wrinkle we hadn't seen yesterday, because that's a Cal thing, and Cal loses in the first round. So,
man, we are. Let's do one comment each on these guys so we can get this thing quickly, because we have, this team's too much fun to talk about, and we have an inability to keep things short. I can tell you, we're already coming up on our thing. But Seth Jasper, real quick, anything? I like that he made his shots. I like that he was a little aggressive.
Yeah, 4 assists, 1 turnover, doing his thing. It looked totally comfortable. I'm really curious how he's going to handle the ball pressure of Miami tomorrow. I think tomorrow is going to be the test for the guards. We'll talk more about that right at the end.
Dylan Cardwell, I liked his rebounds. I like that we've got a guy we're pretty confident backing up Kessler. Not a great score or anything like that, but just nice that he's confident back there.
Yeah, you take him for granted until he goes down with a hip, and you're like, oh no, and like you said, you immediately start going through all these scenarios. Great to see him. Obviously, we got to hang out with him and talk to him for a while, so it was cool to just see. He obviously was playing up that Jabari dunk reaction. He knew he was going to get on all the videos if he just stood there long enough. And
friend of the pod, do it all, yeah. Dylan.
He's hilarious. Yeah.
Devin Cambridge had an amazing block that was really great. The guy tried to back him down and came in, just put that hand right on it. It was great, and he also had his alley-oop moment. And it was right before the Jabari dunk. And we thought that was like the Monstars exclamation point on this big run. We just finished off the game with exclamation point of Cambridge. Next possession, Jabari with an all-time dunk and just completely erases this whole Cambridge thing. They don't even show the Cambridge thing in the highlights because it gets erased by Jabari's dunk.
It continues to be the thing where his highlight reel is going to have so many hidden gems that you've forgotten about how good some of his dunks are. I'm tracking Cambridge's rebounds. 5 really good ones. Felt like he was physical and aggressive and doing the things we need him to do outside of maybe that forced 3.
Wendell Green, 9 points, 3 personal fouls. He's starting to get these like little tic-tac fouls. People are backing him down and he is fouling and it's not in good fouls. Like it's okay if the guy's going up and you foul hard and keep him from making that too. He's getting these weird, like pulling on people's arms and like trying to pull the chair out from behind him. But like, I think he's been efficiently pulling the chair out behind him, but then I guess he grabs the arm or the jersey or something while he does it. Like, I just need Wendell, like, we can't have him in foul trouble based off these little tic-tac things. If people get you in a bad position down low, like, don't take too many of those fouls, you know?
He had a really crafty one he got called for where he grabbed the guy's arm in a quick instant and it caused the ball to come loose and he was going to be going the other way. I was actually almost impressed with that one. I was like, oh, he almost got away with that. And that would have been a really good play. But they are going to pick on our small guards. I think we know that. Anybody with guards who are bigger, they're going to try to put you down low. And like you said, maybe get him in foul trouble. I just thought Wendell, when he is quiet and efficiently doing everything else, and he's helping everybody else get engaged and get involved, he is a lethal player. And we know he can go on run. We know he can shoot us back into a game. I just thought that was a perfect opening game for him coming off the bench, getting settled in his first tournament game. 6 assists, 1 turnover, man. He has struggled with turnovers at times, and he only played 24 minutes. He's going to be in great shape for tomorrow.
He just felt comfortable out there and he felt like he got the offense going. All his shots were based on like good offense and not him just like walking up the court, getting a little frazzled and then taking a shot or like keeping his head down. It was nice. That's what I want from it. I'm cool with him making shots. I'm cool with him driving the ball and having the ball in his hands. You just got to get the offense moving before you start doing that kind of stuff. That's your number one is get the ball to Walker or Jabari. If it comes back to you and you have a thing, go make it happen. This will be a good time to talk about, amazing. We did it, guys. We did it. We won our first round, the NCAA tournament. We got another one coming up. I think we could do a little double of March Madness as a whole and our next matchup. And I wanted to tell like a little funny thing that I've done twice now. The first time was way more epic. Me and my friend Ryan 3 years ago, before the pandemic, there's an alumni bar for every school in the country here. We made a whole big list. We wore these white jerseys with whiteboards on them so you could change the logo with markers. And we went to a bunch of different bars. Like each hour we were jumping to a different bar to watch these games and do the Wabash Cannonball with K-State fans and went to the Colgate bar, which I keep bringing Colgate, but twice now, Colgate's been the best bar. And I went to the Auburn one, went to like the Dukes and the Wisconsins and just all these different bars. We did again on Friday and had a great time going to Auburn, Villanova, USC, Iowa State, Colgate, missing somebody else in there. But just had a great time watching the game, these different alumni bars. And just know the New York City Auburn Club has the best alumni bar. We can be homers all we want, but I've gone to a lot of alumni bars now. And we did this outside of just these crazy days we do. I still like to go like find the alumni bars for the big games, go watch Clemson in a different sport if they're in that game. Go check out these different bars. And Auburn always consistently has the best bar, DJs, several stories. I'm involved with New York City Auburn Club. Big shout out to Greg, who's the president. It's so cool to see how well Auburn does in New York City like that. And we had a great time watching all the games. Shout out to Colgate. They've had the best bar like the 2 different times. Not like better than Auburn, but it's just bizarre. Colgate's actually an upstate New York school, so it's just like that's part of the reason. But the most bizarre one, we did it 3 years ago and walked in. It was full of Colgate fans. We're like, wow, so cool. Who would have known? They almost beat Tennessee. And we were like having a great time with them. This time we went to this place and some of the bars were less fun this time. It was, I don't know, like post-pandemic, I guess. Walking to this one, it's like a club like atmosphere in there. And we're like, oh no, like maybe they like watch this on other days, but it's not like a Colgate bar right now because it's Friday night or whatever. The Colgate game shows up on the screen with the logo and the whole bar, like hundreds of people, they're like clubbing basically, roar, yeah, Colgate. I'm like, oh no, we are in the right place. And it was like a packed club like atmosphere for Colgate versus Wisconsin. They were going nuts for every score. But that's my little story. And we could talk about the different matchups and, Kentucky. You want to talk more about Kentucky, St. Peter's?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, I just think it's fun. Everybody gets to kind of do. I'm still very much debating going to the second round game tomorrow and Chicago next weekend potentially. It's fun. Like the first 2 days of the tournament are the best days of the year on the sports calendar to me. So much basketball to the point where I get physically tired and like my eyes get tired. I love it. So I've really enjoyed that. Got my new shirt from Home Field Apparel. Shout out Ever to Conquer. With the Auburn
Peacock on from the stadium versus South Carolina.
this arrived. Yeah, that's right. You know, the St. Peter's Kentucky one is going to go down as one of those all-timers when you think about and just think about this start for us. Okay, let's just count our blessings here after the first round. You've got an Auburn win, right? We didn't embarrass ourselves. You've got Murray State, our friends, having unbelievable. I don't know if you saw that. The overtime between Murray State and San Francisco was some of the best basketball I've seen in a long time. It was unbelievable. Murray State wins. The Peacocks beat Kentucky in the year of our Peacock season.
You're the Peacock, baby.
And now you've got Murray State or St. Peter's is going to be in the Sweet 16, and hopefully Auburn can join them. So just Alabama loses. I hate that Quinterly got hurt. It was like a Chuma-like injury, but they just continue to be very disappointing. And J.D. Davison was awful, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And
shout down to the New York Notre Dame club. They don't have a bar. They don't have a watch party. Unbelievable. Notre Dame is a huge fan base, and I contacted their people. No bar. That was the one I was most looking forward to going to. Is either Rutgers or Notre Dame cheering against Alabama, and they didn't have a bar. And they told me to go to the Ainsworth, which is the Bammer bar. I couldn't believe it. So, man, it was just cool to watch them lose. I love it. That just they won nothing. Kentucky won nothing. Alabama won nothing. They were preseason pick number 1. They go out in the first round and get nothing. And I love it. I thought I called it out all year. Alabama's not as good as people were saying they were.
You're right. I was one of those people who thought they were better because they have.
I think this. Hopefully, I'll probably take another year to confirm this. But they had all those seniors during the COVID year, and every team that had a bunch of freshmen and high-rated people or whatever struggled. The Dukes, the North Carolinas, the Kentuckys, the Auburns, all these people did not even make the tournament last year, or at least Kentucky and Auburn didn't. I don't think North Carolina did either, and a couple other teams like that. But the teams that did really well, the teams that already had players for 3 or 4 years on their team and didn't have to deal with all the weird COVID stuff. They already had the chemistry. They already knew the people. They already had their friends. They adjusted college better. And so I think that's really what it came down to. They just lucked out with the right combination of players last year. And everybody talking about NATO, blah, blah, blah. He just lucked out into a good roster, and now he's going to lose some more people, and screw him. And I hope their recruiting is not. I know they just keep getting people because they're Bama and they have their little system set up or whatever. But you keep going to back coach who can't develop people like J.D. Davidson, then I guarantee J.D. Davidson probably would be still not as good as people thought he was going to be if he came to Auburn, but he would be developed more by Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl would have figured out how to get that kid's confidence up and figure out a role for him.
Well, look at what's happening with J.T. Thor and Isaac Okoro. These guys who are not supposed to be one and done or two and done guys who have vaulted up. Walker Kessler, vaulting up draft rankings. J.D. Davison is going to be an example of the other side of that in recruiting for Auburn. We wanted J.D. Davison. He's a great high school player. We really thought we had a shot at him maybe. And look at what happened to him. He'll probably still be a lottery pick or a first round pick just off potential. But did he maximize that? Did he help himself make more money this year? I don't think so.
We're hoping he's one of those leaves and no matter what kind of guys he goes, he gets a late second round opinion and decides to leave, and because he could still turn around. He could turn around. I just don't believe Nate Oates is the person to turn him around. He could transfer to another SEC school. He could figure it out in his sophomore year. I'm just hoping he goes ahead and leaves.
One other thing real quick, Oscar Shibway, there's a lot of talk about him coming back with a big NIL deal for Kentucky. He was heartbroken. He was crying off leaving the court because he is he's a great guy and he's a great player. I hope he leaves, but and then
it's a whole different day and age, man. You're right. I forget that these guys that are not built for the NBA necessarily, but are gonna leave early anyways because they got to go make their money. They can now do this math and actually potentially make more money staying in college. The Drew Timmies of the world at Gonzaga, the Oscar Shibways, the Jordan Davies at Wisconsin, the guys that are great college players that don't quite have the build for the NBA. It might end up being great for us one day, but we have the opposite right now. Yeah. We have a dude that's not really the opposite, because there are opposites. We've had real opposites. So this guy got drafted just off of potential. He's not even that great of a college player, like a JT Thor kind of type that needed more years to develop, but he'll do it in the NBA,
I just want to give a shout out to Cormac Ryan of Notre Dame. He went 7 of 9 from 3, had 29 points against Alabama. He just cut their hopes into smithereens. He averaged 8 points a game for the season and had 29 in a soul crushing defeat of Alabama. As much as I don't like Notre Dame, I'll take it all day.
That's the most Notre Dame name
I
I've
know.
ever
I
seen.
wanted to get that.
Cormac Ryan. Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
You love it when a player fits right. Like Colt McCoy at Texas was like that. You know, a guy that just has the right name.
Well,
Any other thoughts on like March Madness overall? Like, you want to talk Miami real quick?
yeah, I don't have any thoughts overall other than I just love it, and I love that we're a part of it, and we're one of the last 32 teams left. You know, Bruce, there was a video that came out. He was talking to the team before they went to South Carolina. And he said, the best part about the tournament and the craziest thing that people don't think about is, you know, you go from 68 to 16 in these short amount of time. Like, all you got to do is win 2 games and you're part of the Sweet 16 with a chance to go to the Final Four. Like, he talked about breaking it up into small bits. So Miami, I went into this game, I thought USC might have been underseeded a little bit. I was a little nervous about them in the second round matchup, but as I watched that game, I found myself rooting for USC. You know, Miami played a scrappy, up-tempo, guard-heavy style of ball. They hit tough shots. They got out in transition. They turned USC over a lot. So this is going to be a game of a very open game. I think it's going to be an up-tempo, back and forth, up and down the court. Historically, Auburn's very comfortable doing that with other teams, but hasn't it felt like this year at times this team doesn't thrive in the chaos quite as much as other Bruce Pearl teams maybe? I think it's going to be a tough matchup, and if our guards can be up to the test against Miami's guards, it's going to be a great sign for the rest of the tournament, in my opinion.
Some of that's not scoring in transition well, like confidently, and we even saw it this game. It was interesting. You know, to what KD's assists, he's on 2 different fast breaks, he passed the ball. One time it worked out pretty well, and the other time he put too far ahead of him. And I think it was Zepp or somebody else had to like go track it down or whatever. And the other one to Kessler even did was a weird one. He could have thrown an alley-oop easily to Walker Kessler trailing behind him, and he ended up throwing like a weird wraparound or something to him that Kessler almost fumbled and finally got in. So that's the kind of stuff. Miami, I looked at their post game on Reddit, and Miami was leading pretty good against USC for a while, and USC made a big comeback. And but one of the interesting stats was Miami was 1 of 14 from 3. Their best player was in foul trouble and fouled out. They got out rebounded by 12. They shot 42% and allowed USC to shoot 42% from 3. And then the reason they lost, or the reason why USC lost, is they turned the ball over 18 times. So if we can take care of the ball, if Miami plays another game like that again with those kind of stat lines, we'll win as long as we don't turn the ball over 12 plus times, like Matt said, that 12 number or whatever. So that's going to be major key to keep an eye out. Don't turn the ball over.
Absolutely. Taking care of the ball is going to be huge. I just thought their guards got inside and hit tough 2s. And I think our guards at times, we like funneling everything to Walker sometimes rather than staying in front of your man and making them hit tough 2s. And also, if you go 1 for 14 from 3, you're probably due to hit some more in the next game. So, but take care of the ball. I didn't see anybody.
You suck and you're awful at 3, and you're going to go 0 of 16 from 3 when you face us.
But Miami had a guy who they called on the broadcast a poor man's Walker Kessler. There was a tall white guy who had a few nice blocks, but he's like nowhere near I didn't see anybody on Miami's team that should be able to limit Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler. So can Auburn take advantage of that matchup enough, and can the guards just be as close to even with Miami's guards in terms of production and defense? And if they can just neutralize the guards, I think Auburn wins this game and goes to the Sweet 16. So that's something I'll be watching for. Jim Larrañaga, their coach, has been around a long time. He's had some Cinderella runs. Like, he knows what he's doing. But you just hope Auburn, it's a 10 seed. The ACC was way down. The Pac-12 was way down. You kind of hope that maybe those 2 teams were like better in their leagues because their leagues weren't that good. But Miami impressed me. I'll say I thought they played a good game against USC, and they looked like the more aggressive, physical, confident team.
One day we'll get some benefit of the doubt or a little love or something if we're good enough for these TV times. 12:40 on Friday sucked. I had to take a half day from work to go watch it at the bar. I'm sure a ton of people are trying to watch it during their work, and they put these other crappy games on later on because they have Duke next to the name. Duke and Cal State Fullerton get a freaking primetime spot while we're playing at 12:40. And then Sunday night, we're playing at 7:45 Eastern, I believe, is the time. late, man. I was hoping we could do the podcast maybe from St. Pat's live, but I think it's just gonna be too late by the time we're like getting the podcast up at St. Pat's. We'll get the podcast out at night. It just won't be from St. Pat's probably. It's late, and then you got the 3 CBS games in the afternoon, and we get pushed to True TV at 7:45 p.m. on a Sunday night.
It's true. It's a problem, but you kind of have to earn, part of that's just Auburn being a smaller school and a less of a national basketball brand right now. There's only one way to change that. But so here's for me, the calculus of this, right? Like, so I can go to Greenville, South Carolina tomorrow, and I can watch Michigan State Duke, which would be awesome. That's the first game on the CBS afternoon kind of prime slot. And then our game
5 o'clock, I thought, right?
Yeah, something like that. 4 Eastern or Central.
I thought it was the third one. I thought there was 2 before.
You're right.
CBS,
You're right. But they do a triple header. They do 1, 2, 3 on CBS.
And clearly, we don't fit into the triple header. I guess we're not cool enough.
No. But see, then I'm probably having to stay there Sunday night.
Yeah, it sucks for the fan. I'm mad because it's going to just be a late night for me or whatever. Like in the St. Pat's one, it would have been more fun in the afternoon. But yeah, I feel worse for the fans. The fans were probably hoping they could I'm sure there's a decent amount that hope they could get up there early in the morning, come back late at night. You can't really leave after 9, 10 at night,
Well, if you're watching all these other games, you really need to root for Iowa State to beat Wisconsin, because Chicago next weekend is going to be closer for Kansas and Wisconsin fans, and those are bigger universities than us. If we could have one of those teams lose that end up in Chicago next weekend, and we're one of them if we're fortunate enough to win, I'd like to go there. But man, Kansas, Wisconsin they're gonna eat up a lot of those tickets, I would imagine. Chicago's
freaking expensive already. Me and Matt were debating pretty hard about going to Sweet 16. I'm still thinking about it, but man,
me too.
The plane tickets, the hotel, the tickets to the game are like $250 plus probably.
Yeah,
it's tough. I went to the Final Four a couple years back because I had to get that bucket list thing, but
and I'm there. If we make it, I've already said I'm in New Orleans. I'm going. That's my for sure. And I would say if we make it to the Elite Eight, there's no way I'm not going to either tomorrow's game or one of the ones next weekend in Chicago. I'm going to go to one of those if we keep winning. And then Final Four, I'm there because it's a drivable for me. So
I think a lot of fans will be doing that because it's in New Orleans. Even if they don't have tickets, still, and I think it's might even the price to be really expensive for Final Four, but be worth it. But anyways, guys, that was fun. I know this podcast will be irrelevant in 20 hours or something, but I'm glad we could document it at the very least. We don't get to win these very often, so we set the record 10 first rounds, undefeated in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Get out of our way.
And Alabama's sitting at home and Kentucky's sitting at home. So.
Oof. All right, guys. War Eagle.
War Eagle, everybody. Beat Miami.